Hello Year 3 and welcome back to your second writing lesson of the week. So today we're going to be looking at yet another feature of our persuasive text. So before we do that, make sure that you have everything to hand. So you just need a piece of paper and a pen. Otherwise, you can have the worksheet printed out. It, again, as always, is available on your home learning document for the day. So without further ado, let's start with the do now. So today we are going to be looking at two conjunctions in particular, otherwise and although. So super simple. All I want you to do is to read through the sentences and identify which one you would choose, otherwise or although. If you don't have the sheet, as always, you can just write 1 to 10 like you would do in a spelling test and just write the conjunction. You don't need to rewrite the entire sentence. That will take you far too long. So press pause now, read through the sentences and press play when you are ready for me to go through the answers. Okay, hopefully you paused in plenty of time. Make sure that you are ready before I continue. And here are the answers. So I'm not going to waste both our time reading it out for you. You can read those out yourselves. Press play when you are ready to continue, but press pause now just to make sure that you have got everything correct. Okay, well done, and I look forward to seeing you using conjunctions which are a bit more adventurous, like otherwise and although in your writing. So definitely going to be keeping my eyes peeled out for that. So today we are going to be learning how to shift the perspective from second to third person in our writing. Now, that seems quite tricky as a Walt, but no fear, we are going to go through that step by step in today's lesson. So firstly, to be successful, we need to know what is actually meant by the word perspective, and then we're going to identify words used for different perspectives. In particular, we're going to be looking at the second and third person perspective. But what do we mean by perspective? Well, quite simply, it means from whose point of view are we reading from? Are we reading from our own point of view or somebody else's? So let's have a quick run through of what each of those perspectives might look like. So first we have the first person perspective. Now you have used this so many times in your writing, especially in year 2 and particularly in year 3 this year when you wrote your diary entries and also when you wrote your letters from Barney when he was at the camp when we looked at Stick of the Dump. And quite simply, writing in the first person means we are writing as ourselves. So for instance, I, meaning myself, looked out of my, belonging to me, window. And when we're writing in the first person, it's almost like we're just writing out our thoughts on the paper. And so therefore we use words such as I, me, myself, mine, we, if we're talking about me and another person, ourselves, or our. So I wonder now, with that in mind, if you can spot where the first person has been used. So you're looking for those words such as I, my, mine, myself. So what I'm going to do is pause the video for you here, or you can continue to listen to me read it, and then just say out loud whenever you see a word that shows it is in the first person. Dear diary, what a day I've had. Not only was I late for school, but I found out my poor pet rabbit Buster has to go to the vet. I feel so sad for him because he's never been ill before. So take a moment now to think about what words you spotted that would show this is being written in the first person. Okay, so I have highlighted there any words that would indicate we are writing as ourselves. So I've got I, which is the contraction for I have. I, of course, being a huge one there. My, because the pet belonged to me. Now that we know what the first person looks like, I wonder if you can think of any texts or stories or poems that you've read that are written in the first person. I'd be glad to hear your ideas in our briefings. But how could we change this to the second person perspective? Well, second person simply means writing for another person. So this time we're talking directly to somebody else. So remember the first sentence I showed you was I looked out of my window. Well, now we're going to be talking to a second person. So imagine your friend next to you and you're narrating everything they do. So instead it would be you looked out of your window. So you're not addressing the person by name, you're being quite personal and quite direct. And so when we're writing in the second person, you're looking for words such as you, your, yours, or yourself. So with that in mind, let's have a look at another passage and see how it's been translated into the second person. So this again is the same diary extract we just looked at when we were looking at the first person, but I've changed it to the second person perspective. So talking directly to somebody else, narrating what they have done. So again, I wonder if you can spot any words that have been changed from the first person to the second person. What a day you've had. Not only were you late for school, but you found out your poor pet rabbit Buster had to go to the vet. You feel so sad for him because he's never been ill before. So again, press pause here and have a think about any words that have now changed to make it sound like we are talking and narrating somebody else's actions. Okay, so hopefully you spotted the words I have highlighted there for you. You've, which is the contraction for you have, you, your. All of these words are as if we were talking about somebody else's action. So that's the second person. So first person, you're talking about yourself. Second person, you're talking directly about somebody else. So that leaves us with the third person perspective. Now this is when we're writing for another person almost as if we didn't know them. So we use their name as well as pronouns such as she, he, him, her, their, or themselves. So for instance, instead of saying I looked out of my window, which is the first person, or you looked out of your window, which was the second person, the third person is now speaking about somebody else entirely, almost like they're completely removed from you. Dylan looked out of his window. So Dylan has now replaced I and you. He is the third person, and the window now belongs to him, so we use his. Dylan looked out of his window. So we're not talking about ourselves, we're not talking to somebody else, but we're talking about a third person that isn't quite there with us at that moment. So with that in mind, where can you now spot the third person being used? What a day Dylan had. Not only was he late for school, but he found out his poor pet rabbit Buster had to go to the vet. He feels so sad for him because Buster has never been ill before. So again, just like before, pause the video and note down any words that have been replaced to change this from the second to the third person, and press play when you are ready for me to reveal your answers. Okay, well done. So hopefully you noticed that we have used the name of the person, Dylan, and therefore we have used pronouns, which mean words that are used in place of his name, such as he and his. Now, before we go into our model text, I'm going to show you a short video which explains the first, the second, and the third person. Now, we are mainly looking at the second and third person, but I think this is a really nice way of showing you the differences between the different perspectives.
Writing's all about choice. Choosing the best words to say what you mean, choosing the best way of joining your ideas together. And if you're writing a story, it's important to choose who's telling it. You can choose to stand outside your story, which means you tell the story, but you're not part of it. Or you can put yourself inside your story and tell it as if you are one of the characters. It makes a difference to how you write it. Let's hear this story first told from the outside.
Alice arrived at the bus stop early. She wanted to make sure she was there before Tom. For Alice, this was the end of a long road. Every moment of the last 6 months had been building up to this one. She was tired, and within seconds of sitting down, she had drifted into a deep sleep. Tom saw her as soon as he rounded the corner. He walked purposefully towards her, then suddenly he hesitated. Lifting the bag, he glanced first at its contents, and then at Alice, who slept on. His decision made, he approached the shelter. Alice's eyes opened. For a moment she looked frightened. Then, slowly, she held out her hand.
So that's the story told from the outside. But what if you wanted to put yourself inside the story and write it from Alice's point of view? I was there early. I wanted to see Tom before he saw me. I didn't trust him. As I sat waiting, I thought back. I tried to remember, how long had this been going on? Was it 5 months or 6? It seemed like a lifetime. All those weeks getting his trust and then persuading him to agree, then setting up a meeting. Suddenly, I was tired, really tired. I could feel my eyes beginning to close. What harm could it do to slip into sleep for just a moment? I knew I should stay awake. And just as surely, I knew I wouldn't. When I awoke, I sensed I was no longer alone. My heart beat faster. I opened my eyes. It was Tom. He was holding a carrier bag. I felt myself begin to panic. What if he wouldn't give it to me? What if he'd changed his mind? I held out my hand. He reached into the carrier bag. Could it be? At last? He was going to speak.
Okay, left it on a bit of a cliffhanger there. So that was an example in real time of how we can shift the perspective from first to second, but obviously in ours we are going to be looking at second to third. So here I have got our model text, and we are going to be switching from the second to the third person. So we are going to be talking directly to our reader, and then we're going to switch it by talking about somebody else. So I wonder if you can spot where we have used the second and third in the first section of our model text. So press pause now and have a read through yourself, because I know you've read this plenty of times already this week, and then see if you can spot where the second person has been used, so when we're talking directly to our reader, and then when the third person has been used, so when we have been talking about somebody else. Remember to press pause, because I'm about to reveal our answers. So I know when I am talking about the second person, that means that I am using words such as you, your, yourself, yours, because I'm talking directly to a person, almost as if I'm talking to my friend. So let's have a look. Do you have a horrid, irritating teacher? Of course you don't. You have lovely teachers in year 3. Are they making your school life a complete misery? So that is where I can see the second person being used. Now the third person, I'm going to switch colour here. The third person would be talking about somebody else entirely. So I'm probably going to be looking for somebody's name to be used and pronouns such as he, his, him, or she, her. Well, just 6 months ago, George, there we go, that is talking about a new person. I'm not talking to anyone now, I'm talking about somebody. He couldn't get through a single lesson by his unbearable teacher. Would tear up George's work, force him to write lines, until one day George had enough. So you can see there's been a switch in perspective. I have got my second person because I'm talking to somebody, and then I switch to third because I'm talking about somebody. So let's have a go at shifting from the second to the third. So I have got a sentence here, and my steps to success are to firstly identify where second perspective words have been used. So I've got my little handy guy here, and I'm going to be looking for words such as you, your, yours, and yourself, because that's going to help me change to the third person equivalent. So let's have a read of the sentence first. Have you remembered to bring in your spelling book today? Okay, so I'm looking, my first step is second perspective words, second person's perspective. So I can see there I've got you. Have you remembered to bring in your spelling book today? Okay, and now I'm going to change this to the third person. So I'm going to change you and your to words such as his or her. So has she remembered to bring in her spelling book today? Or I could change to has he remembered to bring in his spelling book today? So There is a shift. I'm no longer talking to somebody, I'm talking about somebody. Let's try another one. You're a very kind person, so I want you to treat yourself. So again, my first step to success is to identify any words that have been used in the second perspective. So words such as you, your, yours, and yourself. Well, I can see you're there, short for you are. And so I want you to treat yourself. Oh, there are 3 there. And then my second step is to then change that sentence into the third person. So any words that I've underlined are going to be the words I change. So actually, I might change it to a name. So I might go for Harry is a very kind person. So I want him to treat himself. But I can see there that I've used I, which is the first person. So maybe I will make it even more third person and say they. Harry is a very kind person, so they want him to treat himself. Again, I'm no longer talking to somebody, I'm talking about somebody. Right, that's enough of me. Let's see if you can do the same. So press pause now. I've got a sentence there for you, and then have a look at your steps. Identify the second perspective words, the second person perspective, and then change it to the third person perspective. And then I am going to reveal what my answer would be. So press pause now. Okay, so what I came up with for the third person equivalent was, I hope he has a wonderful birthday tomorrow. He's going to be 8. Okay, and if you had any other ideas, make sure you upload them to Cecil so we can see your fantastic ideas in writing. So let's try this second example. Are you fed up of always having to wake up to the sound of your shrill alarm? Again, follow the steps. 1, identify the second person perspective words and underline them, or just make a note of them, say them out loud. And then secondly, change them for the third person equivalent. So press pause now. Okay, I'm going to reveal my answers. Is she always fed up of having to wake up to the sound of her shrill alarm? So again, no longer talking to somebody, I'm talking about somebody. Fantastic. Okay, so now that we have looked at what changing perspective means, we know the different perspectives that there are, and we've had a go at changing them up ourselves. Let's have a look if you can identify the second and third perspective being used in this fake advert here for a smoothie maker. Are you in the market for a new smoothie maker? Tired of your breakfast looking dull and drab? Richard was in the same boat as you. He could not get through another breakfast of bland porridge. Until, that is, Richard got his hands on the Smoothie Blaster 3000. So what I would like you to do is you can make a note of this, or you can just say it out loud to yourself or your partner. Where is the second perspective being used? So where is the text talking to somebody directly? And then when has it started using the third perspective? So when is it talking about somebody else? Press pause now. As always, I'm going to reveal my answers when you are ready. Okay, so you can see there in red, I have underlined where the second perspective has been used. And in blue, I have used the third person perspective, which is where I have used the person's name and the pronouns such as he and his. So as we are writing about persuasive text, your task is, I have given you 3 different products, just like we had last time. And you are going to write a couple of sentences shifting from the second to third person. Really great way to do this is when you're writing in the second person, why not use a rhetorical question? Because that's when you're talking directly to the reader. So for instance, if my product was a holiday, my example goes as follows. I have got my second perspective in blue, which is where I am talking to my audience. Are you in desperate need of a holiday? Finding you're bored with the same old view day in, day out? Then I'm going to talk about somebody else who was in the same position. Well, Sammy had the same thought. He decided enough was enough and booked himself a fantastic new holiday with GoGo Travel. So 1 sentence or 2 sentences there talking directly to this person. So you're using the second perspective. And again, definitely use questions here because it's really going to help you with your writing, and also super easy to get in those words like you and your to make it the second person perspective. And then write a sentence about somebody else who was in the same position, because again, super easy way to know you are writing in the third person. So with that in mind, I have given you 3 different products. One is a Lego set, one is an iPad, and can't quite remember what's on the worksheet, but it is definitely there for you. And remember, second person uses words such as you, your, you are, and third person uses names and also pronouns such as he, she, his, her, or they. So what I would like you to do is, again, imagining you are trying to persuade somebody to buy these products, ask a question, engaging the reader, hook them in, directly speaking to them, and then write about another person who was in the same position and who also really likes the product. If you can't remember or not sure, go back to the slide here and have a think about what I have written, and this will help you with your ideas. So, as always, I cannot wait to see what you will come up with and seeing your uploads on Seesaw and imaginary dojos and lots of whooshes for those people who come up with the most imaginary ideas. Well done, and I will see you all very soon. Have a great writing lesson. Bye.